All right. Well, thank you very much for showing up tonight.
Of
I know
course.
it's kind of weird, but I thought it would be nice to have one last class meeting before the end. And
Mm-hmm.
what I wanted to do was go over the final, go over the final, grading type of things, and talk and just show to people what folks have been doing for their final um, 3D biomorphic projects, because I think they're looking really cool. And regarding that, there was a problem. Several people had said they couldn't get the discussion go respond to things. And one thing I've noticed this semester, there's a couple things that have been changed, just because the I believe the contract with Canvas has been altered a bit with as to what elements UVU wants to use. And when they change things a little bit, I don't always understand how that's tweaking what I've set up in the class. But sometimes I've noticed that means I have to go back in and recheck all the things on the discussions and stuff just to make sure that people can actually respond to them. And so I'm sorry for whatever problem that's causing, uh, but I believe it is all taken care of now, because several people have been able to add discussion elements for that last discussion. So I'll talk about that in just a little bit. But first, before we do that, I wanted to see if Polly has any questions, and then I'll go forward with observations, talk about the final, and then go into what I just mentioned. So, Polly, again, thank you very
Yes.
much for being here. I really
Yes.
appreciate
I didn't want to miss our last time.
that.
And I do have a question about you were saying IRS. No, you were saying we can find it on Canvas and evaluate for a 2% bump in our
Oh,
grade.
it's SRI.
Sorry,
SRI.
I I turned it upside down. Yes, is it the same like when we just evaluate our course?
Well, this is what the student SRI is, what it is officially
Oh,
called. But yeah, when you should have gotten an email. Everybody should get an email for each of the classes that they're taking at UVU that invites them to do a survey about the class. And it's
mm-hmm.
called Student SRI for each of the courses that you're registered for. And you can also find a link to it if you go to your Canvas portal, your homepage as a student. And on
Mm-hmm.
the top right, they should also have links there. So if anybody can't find this, do a search in your email for SRI, and that should give you the links. Barring that, do look on your homepage for Canvas, and you should see the SRI for that. Or I'm sorry, the link to your SRI. I do not remember what the SRI stands for. It's something like student response something, or something, survey for students experience, or I don't know what it means, but that's the abbreviation that they use.
I see. Thank you.
And then the SRI, it does help the school to see how well these classes are. And what I really appreciate is UVU is very good about correlating responses that students give with the grades that they receive in the class without challenging anonymity, which is really nice, because when universities first started doing this, like 25 years ago, um, I noticed right away that I had the same number of negative reviews as I did for the number of students that got lower than a C in the class. And when I
Oh,
pointed that out to uh, the administration, they said, "Well, yeah, what's the point?" I said, "Are you kidding? Anybody gets a bad grade, is going to want to try to get the professor in trouble. And so UVU is really good. That was not at UVU. UVU is really good at making sure that they weight the student survey responses appropriately. So, but for this, in order to get credit for this, so you get your extra credit, you just do a screenshot that says you completed the SRI for this class, and it needs to be for this class this semester, and you submit that. And then as soon as you submit it, then the grade is complete or incomplete. And if it's complete, it shows up on my grading sheet, and I can give you the 2% bump. Does that help?
Yes, I can see it now.
Okay.
Very
All right.
cool.
Did you find it on your homepage or did you find it in your email?
Well, every time I go on Canvas now, every day, it always says, do you want to take the student assessment? Whatever, but I just wasn't sure if it's the same thing. But now I can see it underneath our final where you showed it.
Okay, so it does appear to be the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
All right, good, excellent. All right, so what should we do next? Should we talk about what the final is next, and then I'll talk about people's grades and stuff?
Yes, it would be good to know what you're
Okay,
expecting for those 4 final questions.
okay. All right. Okay, so this is the final module. Everything's published, but this you don't have access to right now, and I will change that right as soon as we're done with this. Um, you will have access starting the 24th, which is the first day of finals, and your access will be maintained through April 30th, which is the last day of finals. And I do it this way. We don't have a specific day for the final because it's called an asynchronous online course, which means that, it's almost impossible to line up everybody's schedules at the same time. So I give you 4 open-ended questions, and it's your responsibility between April 24th and April 30th to answer those 4 questions. And it makes sense if you begin on the 24th and do it right away, because I will be grading these every single day. And if you don't get a perfect score, you don't get all the points on the first day, then you have the remaining days to resubmit. And this is what these 4 questions are. And each of these 4 questions need to be answered regarding on a different element of the class. So you can't use the same experience for each of the 4 questions. Each one should be on a different experience in the class. So you're taking the SRI, which is your student assessment of the course, but in this, it's kind of a survey a little bit, but I want to get from you what your personal experience was in this class. And so the 4 questions are each worth essentially a quarter of the overall score, and each one needs to be at least 50 words long. Each answer of the 4 answers need to be at least 50 words long. So the grand total should be at least 200 words. And what people have done before is they've copied all 4 of these questions. Now, Paula, you can see this, right? You can see this page that
Yes,
says,
yes, I can see it.
okay. All right. What people have done before is copied this into a document and counted this towards a word count, and that's not going to cut the mustard. You can copy it in, but the word count only applies to 50 words for each of your answers. So if you have 3 answers that are 65 words long and one that's only 20 words, then that's still not going to count as a full score, because although the total is over 200 words, you need to have at least 50 words for each of the 4 questions. All right. So the first question is, what was your greatest challenge in the course? And it's interesting to me because a lot of the students that take this class are 2D artists or digital artists or photographers. And they say consistently that one of the biggest challenges is to start thinking proactively in 3D space because they're so used to thinking in the two-dimensional realm or or digital. And many times students will talk about the biggest challenge as a module. Um, I, I've told a story before about the service learning person who they, the people that they were trying to connect with kept dropping out. And the person's biggest challenge in the course was finding a service project that he could do in the last couple weeks of the class. And but sometimes it's also like the wire sculpture. Sometimes it's a report. But whatever the challenge is, talk about what that greatest challenge is and why it was such a big challenge. And you only need 50 words. The second question is, what was the greatest success? You know, if is there a project that you were not very sure about, you're not very confident about, and then when you got all done, you were really glad it turned out as well as it did? You know, and it really surprised you? Or is your greatest success uh, being able to complete the course? You know, whatever that answer is, you just need to articulate it with at least 50 words. Then the third one is which of the projects, and there is going to be a little bit of overlap potentially, but I want you to go through each of these four questions and think about specific projects or elements that are separate for each one. So which project or process was the greatest surprise to you and why? And it may be that you actually accomplished something that you were afraid that you weren't going to, or you thought it would look really stupid and it turned out looking really good, or you finished something and then people used your project to do their critique on, and you heard some really good things about what you did that helped you gain some confidence. Whatever that is, that third question is just asking you to reflect on that and share that. And I have had some students. I've done this for other classes as well, and I have had some students that it was the first time that they ever took an art class, and they had never considered uh, critical thinking when they looked at art. They just assumed it was something that was beyond their scope of understanding. And they said that the biggest surprise was how much they benefited from using the tools of artistic critique. So, you know, whatever that answer is, doesn't matter. And then the fourth question is, what is one principle you will take from this course and use in your future career as an artist? Whatever that principle is, it doesn't matter. And, you know, and it could be just an awareness of how interesting texture can look when it's all the same color and it's just texture, or how much power you have to exhibit or to use color when you make a collage. You know, whatever the principle is, it does not matter. But, and some people have said that Nick Cave is one of the artists that we look at, and Judith Scott and Betty Saar is another one. And I have had students that talk about each of those artists, and they're just absolutely amazed at the doors that were open in their minds because of being introduced to that artist. There was one woman who was a woman of color who came into the class, and she found Betty Saar and was totally blown away because this artist had a very similar background to her, being a woman of color in California. And just the ways that Betty Saar was able to do her art and empower herself, and in the process empower others, was just mind-blowing to this woman. And that was the principle that she took with her, just that impact that that one artist had as she did her research on her. So, you know, whatever you do, I don't care what the answers are, as long as you articulate each answer with at least 50 words. And I have also had people try to do this with AI. This is an assignment where AI is not going to help you, because AI It's called a large language model, which means that it uses statistical occurrences of words, um, and that is going to be impossible for AI to express your experience because it doesn't have access to your brains. So do not use AI for this. You need to do it yourself because that's the only way to really share what's going on inside of your heart and your brain. Now, one thing that I do need to mention, or Polly, before I go on, are there any questions about any of the 4 questions here?
No, just I was just thinking as you were reading the questions, I was just thinking, what would I say here? And I'm actually excited to do it.
Okay, good.
I think number two is like would be the hardest because what like define success, like what does it mean success? Like does it mean I got a good grade? Does it mean I feel like I learned something or
I
like
think that
overcome something?
you could you spin that any way you'd like, but
Mm-hmm.
for me, success means that when you look back, you're really happy with how things turned out,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that was. And if that means that you did something that you did not think you'd be able to, that means you tackled the challenge that you were sure you were going to fail at, but other students thought you succeeded. Or if it's just learning a principle or gaining respect for something that you had never uh, given a second thought before. Like
Mm-hmm.
for me, one of the successes was learning that I really enjoy Moore's reclining figure sculptures, Henry Moore sculptures, because that was something that um, before really looking at those, I couldn't stand. And being able to get to the point where I can appreciate somebody else's perspective to so that I can respect what their work, and now I kind of enjoy it. That's kind of a personal success.
Mm-hmm.
So does that help? It can mean
Yes.
pretty much anything. Right now, to give you an idea of how important this is, um, the department mandate is that you can not taking the final can result in the loss of a full letter grade at least. Now, what that ends up meaning is, or how I've seen that played out, is the people that aren't really interested in passing the class aren't going to be interested in taking the final. But for everybody who's actually trying, taking the final is really important. And they do that very quickly. Even if I don't have a lot of interaction with students, like last semester, every single student, even the 4 that never interacted on anything during the entire term, everybody took the final and did a really good job.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the really good job comes in with how well you are articulating your answers, and that's it. All right. Does that make? I hope that it's clear. Is clarified. Does
Yes, I'm
that, okay.
sure a lot of students will be excited to share their final like thoughts.
I hope so. Oh, hi, Aaron. You snuck in. Thank you for being here. Well, and I am. This class is a little bit difficult sometimes for me because it is designed as a self-paced class, pretty much. And I do appreciate when people like uh, Polly and Aaron are able to get on live, or Brittany, or any of the other people that have come in, because it makes my job a lot easier. But I do understand that all of you guys are professionals and all of you have incredibly busy lives, which is why attendance comes down to responding to the recordings of these sessions, not actually being present. So
Wanted
the
to add about the final.
I was just going to say that
Oh, sorry.
the final is an opportunity for me to see how students are responding to the material, and that's why I really like it, because people that I don't talk to all semester will actually share their experience in the final, and it means a great deal. Okay, Polly, what were you going to say?
Yes, I haven't had another class where a teacher would say that you can take the final and then get a feedback on it and then resubmit. I think that's very rare opportunity. So I don't see a reason not to take advantage of that.
I appreciate that. I hope everybody does take advantage of that. And like I said, it opens up on the 24th. I will start grading on the 24th. Every day I will grade all the finals that come in that day. And if you feel that you do need to resubmit, go ahead and resubmit. That doesn't hurt my feelings at all. Uh, One thing that I have been really impressed with this last 2 weeks is that a lot of people have been turning in their stuff. And that's something else that I wanted to talk about. There are some projects where a person will, like some of the multi-step projects, where a person did all the steps at once and turned things in. And so when I saw those and I graded it, it made it a little bit difficult for them to respond to what I was saying. I think that as much as you can, look at what the grade is, look at what my feedback is, and make the corrections that you need to and resubmit, as much as you can. If you can't, then, you can't. But do the best you can. And I do realize that tomorrow is the last day of classes, but uh, Canvas will be open for you to turn things in through the last day of finals. You won't be able to do that you won't be able to turn anything in after the 30th, but you can turn things in, resubmit whatever you need to up through the last day of finals. And I hope that helps people to get everything done that they need to. And I have seen some spectacular successes where people in this class 4 weeks ago were hovering around a D, and now they're a good solid B. And other people have many people have been able to raise their score a full letter grade, and that's great. Just keep doing it, and I will grade as much as I possibly can all through finals. If you are having some serious issues and you don't think you're going to be able to finish everything by then, talk to me, because there are some things where I have worked with some students where they need a specific score to graduate. I don't know what that grade is. Um, it depends on your program that you are taking. So you need to contact your student advisement counselor as soon as you possibly can. For some of you, you'll need a B plus to pass this class. For others, it will be a C plus. A C plus is 77% or above, and a B plus is 87% or above. And I have had some people look at that, examine which items that they need to finish because we're right at the end of the semester, and ignore the other ones. And for some people, that seems to work. I would suggest very strongly that you go through, get all the attendance ones done at the least, and then go through and figure out what you got to do to get everything else done. If you do the attendance ones, we talk about each of the modules and each of the assignments in the attendance ones, and you can have those playing in the background while you're working on other stuff. And that does give you, if you get all the attendance, it gives you 15% right away, but it also gives you a really solid understanding of each of the other projects. All right. And I have had several people turn around and resubmit stuff after I say something, like several people with the PowerPoint presentations, not PowerPoint, excuse me, the annotated bibliographies and essays. When I give response feedback on those, they'll turn around. I've had people resubmit things within 15 minutes before, after I grade it. So, whatever you need to do to get the grade that you need to have in order to graduate with this class, let me know and I'll do what I can to help. So Aaron or Polly, do you guys have any questions about that?
No questions.
All right. Now, I do want to show you guys some of the Mighty Voltron sculpture, the last thing to turn in. And I want to talk about this assignment. I'm going to show you from the discussion board for this assignment. And I'll start that right now. Okay. Now this is the final sculpture process turned in by one of the students. For this discussion, what you've got to do is post your images, and you should have at least 2 images of what that sculpture is. And you need to respond to um, the work that you see from 3 other students. And I am trying to get to that page so I can show you what that looks like. Okay, so this is the directions for this discussion. You load your images and that you took of the final sculpture, and that's with all the texture and color and everything else added. And then you make comments, 80 words each, for each of 3 of your fellow students. And that's kind of tough because only 3 people turned in their sculptures before the due date on the discussion. So it made it really difficult for them to do that. But I want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to do that. And you can continue adding to this up until April 30th. So go through, look at all the images in the discussion, pick 3 of the students, and then you're going to write comments about it, 80 words long in 4 paragraphs. And it's 1 paragraph for each of the 4 tools of artistic critique: describe, analyze, interpret, and evaluate. And we'll have a couple good examples to see when, as I'm going through the discussion. So to get full points, 20 points on the discussion submittal, you're going to submit images of your final project with the color and texture added to your biomorphic carving that you've done the paper mache on. You're going to have those images, and then you're also going to make a comment of following these parameters for each of 3 other students. And again, that comment is 80 words long and separated into 4 paragraphs, and each paragraph deals with a different one of the 4 tools for artistic critique: describe, analyze, interpret, and evaluate. I should also mention that only about 7 people have turned in their critiques on other students' work and critiques on their own work. Remember, you need to turn those in. So turn those in as well, and they only need to be, I think, 3 to 5 minutes long. So this is one person's submission, and I think they did a beautiful job with applying the color, sticking to a consistent color scheme, and then just really blowing it out of the water with lots and lots of texture. I think that it turned out very successful. Now, this person has not included yet those 3 comments, or the comments on each of 3 different students. And as I mentioned before, when you respond to discussions, I don't always get that message. So as soon as this person responds to 3 other students in the discussion forum, then they need to email me, and I will go back and adjust their grade. I've already had that happen for a couple people, so I'm happy to do that. Okay, and here's some good examples of what these comments look like. So this person has submitted photos of their sculpture. You can see that, with some very interesting textures, some very interesting color design. And then they made comments, 1 paragraph for each of the 4 tools of artistic critique, and they did that for each of 3 other students' work. I don't need to know which student they're responding to. That's not important to me. I do need to see evidence that they are aware of what the 4 tools of artistic critique are. And you clearly see this person has 4 different paragraphs for each of those 3 different students. So here's another one where and you're not being for the discussion, You're being graded for submitting photos and then comments. And this person did a really, really solid job on each of their comments. The paragraphs are very fleshed out, very solid, and they're precise enough that you have a pretty good idea of whose work they were talking about. So these are absolutely perfect comments. So again, the full submission is at least 2 images of the work and then these comments. Now, some people have turned in the work and I've asked them to make changes and stuff, and they've made those changes and resubmitted that. If you've already done stuff in the discussion and you're going to be resubmitting portions of your work, you do not need to resubmit to the discussion. For the discussion, you just turn in photos and those 3 comments. So this person still needs to make comments on the work of 3 other students. And then this person, they did really good, solid comments as well. Nicely done. So, Polly and Aaron, is this making sense to you?
Yes, as there are more and more sculptures turned in, it'll be interesting to go through,
Yes,
look back at it.
it makes it a lot easier. So here's another person that still needs to make comments. But again, when people turn these in, there weren't any other things for them to look at to make comments on. So please do go back when you can and make comments on the work of 3 other students. So you can see there are a lot of people that have turned stuff in. And then this person as well, really solid comments on the work of 3 other students. Okay. All right. I hope that makes sense to everybody. Again, when you make an addition to the discussion, I don't always see that notification through Canvas. So go ahead and email me and tell me that you added to the discussion, and then I can go back and adjust your grade. Now we do also have another PowerPoint, and I wanted to share that with everybody as well. This is going to be the last video from a student that I can share because, of course, we're at the end of the term. But you do have links to our YouTube channel, and every attendance thing you can follow the link for the attendance thing, and we'll give you a link as well back to our class channel, and then you can see all the other things that students have submitted. This is really important. If you have not done your peer critique or self-critique yet, go to the class YouTube channel and look at examples that other people have done, and that will really help, I think, because everybody who has turned in the peer and self-critique videos has done a really good job. Okay, so this is what our channel looks like. And when you come to one of the attendance classes, it will have a link on there, and you can go ahead and click that link and get to our class channel. Okay, now this is by Brienne, and the artist that she is researching is Angelica Arendt. And so we are going to go ahead and watch this whole thing. And then we'll talk a little bit about all the good things that she did in this PowerPoint.
Hey, my name is Brienne Simmons, and this is my presentation on Angelica Arendt. She is an artist in Germany that specializes in sculpture and drawings. All of her sculptures start off as drawings, and then she will later use them to inspire her sculpture works. But before I get started, I wanted to give a trypophobia warning. So this is Angelica on the right, and what sets her apart from other artists is that she has a very distinct style of how she draws and sculpts. So many artists will use nature to inspire their work. And
I really appreciate. I'm going to stop for just a quick second. Trypophobia. I'm really glad that Brianne put this up, because another one of the artists that we looked at is Yayoi Musama, who has this phobia on steroids. And that's why she works with black polka dots so much. It's a way for her to deal with that. But I'm pausing this, so if anybody does have trypophobia, you can go ahead and have somebody else watch this until we get back to the body of our class.
they'll mimic, they'll use nature within their pieces. She studies, something that we don't see very often is that she studies the microbiology of nature and loves to copy the design of cells and plant work. So a lot of those clusters of cell life. So like I mentioned with trypophobia, that is a strong aversion to patterns that have lots of dots together, lots of holes, lots of that space. And so if you have that phobia, I would not watch this presentation. But a lot of inspiration from her work, like I mentioned, comes from cell life and biology. She likes to mimic coral textures, cave textures with those dripstones, a lot of cell biology, any plant biology, really. She loves to study nature, and she will use that within her pieces. Currently, a lot of her inspiration comes from the Bible. So she will study the different stories within the Bible, try to figure out what makes the story within the Bible the way it is. So she's currently doing, she made two pieces, the Tower of Babel and the Ark, Noah's Ark. Those are two of her more famous drawings. And then, of course, like I mentioned, nature, everything within that is used in her inspiration. But with that, she will study nature for months on end. She will try to look at things under a microscope. She'll go to atriums or the nature conservatories, not sure what they're called, and she will study how plants grow, the temperature that plants grow at, all of the little things that make cells grow and plants grow, and use that within her work. So these are a couple of her sculptures. She loves to create dynamic sculptures that have movement within them, keep your eyes constantly moving. She will make monochromatic sculptures, so a lot of things that don't have a variety of color, but also are eye-catching and have that depth within it. So you notice within the Four Towers sculpture, a lot of different, those coral leaflets that flow across the piece. That keeps the eye moving and creates a sense of a wave going through, gives that feeling of the ocean. And then with the wedding ring, of course, it's a circle, keeps our eye constantly going in a circle, trying to see the different thickness of the dots within and the depth created. So one end of the ring is very thick where the other is very thin. And then a lot of the dots are very thick and then automatically go to super tiny thin dots. And then with her drawings, she focuses a lot on the artwork of the Bible and the atrium themselves. I should say she focuses a lot on the physical things that she sees. So when it comes to the atrium, she copied in her style and in her own way the things that she was seeing with nature, life, and biology. And then, of course, we can see those tiny cluster of dots again within the ark. All of her sculptures come from inspirations from her drawings. So in the atrium piece, we see those tiny clusters of different colors of towers type of thing, and she will use those to create her sculptures. These are currently on sale at her gallery. I shouldn't say on sale, on display, I meant to say, at the Ernst Barlach Museum in Güstrow. This is in Germany. The entails, this middle sculptures, that means untitled. So those are a couple pieces on display, and of course we see Artemis and Aphrodite on display as well. These are things that we can publicly view, and then of course that thin, tall sculpture of the wider shade of pale. While Aphrodite is from 2016, it is currently on display, but a lot of her works are more recent, like 2022, 2023. And lastly, when it comes to pricing of her work, she does have a page on her website that says purchase my work, see what's available. But when you go to that page, it currently says that none of her work is available for sale, I should say. If you are able to purchase her work, you're only able to purchase the drawings. None of her sculptures are listed for even a possibility of being sold. Only her drawings are. Her Bible drawings, like the Tower of Babel and the Ark, are her most popular ones that were on the website. But other than that, you cannot get her sculptures. But that is my artist presentation. That was Angelica, and I hope you enjoyed.
All right. I really appreciated that. It's most of the time when people talk about artists, they don't talk about what the artists are selling and things like that. And it's interesting because if you're a professional artist, that's a big part of what you do. But most of the time, we just talk about the meaning of the work, how we respond to it, and things like that. So that was one thing that Brianne did. I really appreciate she talking about, the nuts and bolts, the sales thing, just mentioning that. And I can't help but wonder if that's so that people get a hold of the galleries and then they buy directly from the galleries because Angelica doesn't want to deal with it, or what. That's just kind of interesting. Some of the things that I really appreciated about what Brianne did are the selection of images was really good. And I also really appreciate where she went in depth into talking about the texture of the materials. She didn't talk an awful lot about the different kinds of materials necessarily, but she did talk quite a bit about the texture and how that was translated three-dimensionally as well as two-dimensionally in the drawings. So I thought that was really interesting. And another thing I appreciate is that she didn't spend a lot of time biographing the artist. She just talked about the art and then a little bit of why the artist might be doing that or how consistent those things were. So I thought that was an interesting take on it as well. Polly, what did you notice about Brianne's presentation?
I liked reading over the bullet points. So it was helping like my brain focus on what she was talking about during that slide.
Yeah, and I appreciate that
Mhm.
there weren't a lot of bullet points.
Right, it was very precise. Yes, and I also enjoyed looking over the art. I'm trying to look up some of the pieces so I can look at it more. Mm.
Another thing that I appreciated is that I wasn't aware that her Bible pieces were the thing that she's focusing on currently, and that they were so popular. That's really kind of interesting to me because Angelica is a mainstream artist, and you don't always expect mainstream artists to work with biblical themes that sell well. That nowadays seems to be more of a niche market. So I thought that was interesting.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, Polly, did I cut you off? What else were you gonna say?
No, I I agree. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I guess also it really felt like she knew what she was talking about. Like
Hmm.
she wasn't only reading, like she obviously did her research and learned about it and was able to just narrate through.
Yes, and I agree with you completely. It's what's interesting to me is if we did these at the beginning of the semester without everybody having experience using those tools of artistic critique, I think that they would sound quite different. Because even when you don't use those terms directly, like you are going to for the peer and self critiques, when you do these PowerPoints, it's as a teacher, it's obvious to me that you guys are engaging your critical thinking skills because you'll say things about the work, like Polly just said, that are precise. Brienne was precise, and that does not come unless you are uh, experiencing um, critical thinking or you're experiencing critical thinking, the kind that we use in this class to closely observe stuff. So I think that that's really fascinating because yeah, these presentations on artists, I've been working with the same 85 artists for this class for the last couple of years. And still, even if I have 4 people in the same class do the same artist, it's going to be different each time. And it's going to be different in a very precise way. And each person, they're not generic. Like Polly said, you guys do your research, and that really shows. So yeah, I appreciate that very much. Well, that's pretty much what I wanted to do. I wanted to tell everybody they're doing a great job getting stuff done and turned in. I wanted to share with you those really cool um, artistic constructions that are so brightly colored with lots of texture in them. And I wanted to share uh, the PowerPoint, and invite people to remember to do their PowerPoints if you haven't already, do the annotations if you haven't already, and get those peer and self critiques in as well. Another thing, I think I may have mentioned it already with the annotations, the things that keep showing up that mean people lose points are um, the citations need to all be in MLA format, and each must include the accessed on date at the end of it. All the annotations need to be organized so that they're alphabetical according to the citation. And you need to have the 2 paragraphs for each citation in your annotations. One paragraph that is a reflection on the material or is a summary of the material, and then the other paragraph is your reflection on the material. And the fastest turnaround right now in this class is 15 minutes. A couple people have taken, a couple days, but if you want those points, there is absolutely no reason that you're not going to get them. All you've got to do is turn around and submit after making the changes that I mentioned, and you'll get the points. So, Polly, that is all that I have. Do you have any other questions that you can think of for yourself, or do you think that there's anything that I need to be more clear on for other members of the class?
Mhm. Again, I appreciate how fast you grading them. It's nice to see your percentage raising.
Oh yeah, good. Yes, I one thing that is really makes me happy is that 3 weeks ago, grades were not doing really very good. And what I have noticed over the last 3 weeks is a lot of people are in the B range that were not there before. So, people are doing a really good job. And I really appreciate that. All right. Well, that is pretty much all that I have. Aaron, do you have any additional comments or anything or questions?
She messaged into the chat.
Okay.
Sorry, it's
I'm
just
so-
a little bit hard to talk with where I am right now.
okay. I'm trying to find where you message into the chat and I don't see it.
No worries. I can't think of anything. I would just agreeing with Polly. It's really helpful that you're on top of grading, and the feedback is just really helpful too. So we very much appreciate it that you're on top of
All
it.
right. Excellent. Now, have both of you been able to get yourself and peer critiques done and turned in, and your PowerPoints and everything like that?
No, I still need to do it.
Okay.
I think when I'll be answering the final, that's what was most challenging for me, is doing critiques and writing comments and to others and being more eloquent. That was
Eloquent?
my eloquent. That was my biggest challenge.
Well, I'll tell you, one thing that really helps is if you have a slow running roommate or a family member that owes you a favor, just do this with them, and that will help you kind of coordinate your thoughts, get your thoughts together. And if you sit down with just that page of those 4 tools of artistic critique, what each one is, and the questions under each of them, don't read off the questions, but as you look at the work, just answer those questions one after another, and that will really help quite a bit. Those, if you do this to somebody, like you're explaining the art to them, and it's somebody that you know, to get you ready for making the video, or going through and answering the questions as you look at the artwork. That really
Okay.
helps. Several people have said that they printed that sheet off and they actually taped it behind their monitor when they had the artwork up on their monitor and recording it. And they just went through, they didn't read off the questions, they just answered the questions under each of the tools. And they said that really helped quite a bit. And, and their stuff comes out looking or sounding really good. All right. If there, does that help, Polly?
Yes, good ideas. I should try it.
Okay, good. Yeah, as soon as I see those things, I will get them graded and back to you, pronto, right away. And if anybody's having a really difficult time, I know there was in the classes that I have taught this semester so far, I have had several physical injuries, a couple involving head injuries with people that have had to have accommodations. A couple of people, and I'm not talking about this class, I'm talking about all the classes that I teach. A couple of people have been diagnosed with ADHD, and which is something that they were surprised because they didn't know that they had it. And they been working with the accommodations office. If there are things that come up that you've got to deal with, let me know, talk to me, and we'll see what we can figure out. And I would heartily recommend, if you have something that is impacting your classes, talk to the UVU accommodations office, because they will either help you directly or suggest the people on campus for you to go to that can help you so that you can still succeed in your classes, even with the challenges that you have. All right. Well, Aaron and Polly, thank you very much for being with me tonight. And if you guys don't have any other questions or anything like that, then we are good. And this is pretty, it's shorter than other class discussions that we've had, but I'm really grateful for the students, for all of you guys coming in to this semester. And it's very impressive to me to see how much work you guys have been putting out this last 2 weeks, especially. Very cool. I'm very happy with it. And I don't want anybody to be overwhelmed at the close of this semester. I don't want you to be frustrated and stressed out of your gourd about the final. That's why I went over it. But again, that will open up, I believe, on Thursday. No, is that right? Yes, it'll open up on Thursday, and you'll have 6 days to finish it. So, take care of that. turn it in as soon as you can, and I will grade you or grade that submission so you know where you stand. Okay, guys, you have an excellent week and an excellent weekend, and have a fun time at finals, which is horrible, but do your best.
Thank you.
Thanks so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you. Thanks, guys, both of you for coming.
Yep.
All right, we'll see you
Good
guys.
night.
Good
Night.
night.
Bye.